All right, as we start then, a couple things. First, I get sent all sorts of stuff all the time, and I got this today. There's nothing earth-shattering. There's nothing new in here, but I got sent this for some reason. It's called JavaScript Fatigue, and they were talking about tips against feeling overwhelmed. This is really important. I'm supposed to ask, and I will. Not everybody's here, and I get that. But Carissa Johnson, I think most of you know Carissa. She's our outreach specialist. She's one of the people employed for the grant. I'm supposed to get a list of all the people who are planning on graduating in May, and I know there's at least some of you in here. She wants to come in next week during one of the classes, I don't know when, and talk. And the only if you say, well, I'm going to graduate, but there's no way in hell I'm walking that, that's fine. You got to do what you want to do. Last year we had about 7 graduates, and 2 of them walked. That was it, and that's okay. But there was also somebody in a different program who wanted to walk, and they have a weird thing now that I think it's May 21st is the actual graduation. It's at that Dream Center. If you don't know where it is, it's not hard to get there, okay? It's about 10 or 15 minutes from here, okay? But the point is, you have to go, the Friday night they have a rehearsal, and they make you come. Literally, you have to sign in and stuff, and if you don't come, they don't let you walk. And evidently somebody last year wasn't told that. They were very, very upset because they had family coming in, whatever, and they couldn't walk. That's a school rule, and they're not going to bend it for anybody, because as soon as they bend it for one person, they're expected to bend it for all. All right? So she had sent me an email saying that. So what I'll do is I'll try to remember that after the break, and I'll just pass around a piece of paper. You put your name on it. You can put yes or no. Yes meaning that you are planning on graduating in May. No meaning you're not. All right? But going along with that, please, especially as you go out and you start looking for a job, there is no employer. First of all, have you ever seen a job ad where you look at it and you're like, holy moly, they want like 12 different things? Chances are that's their ideal employee. And if somebody actually knows all 12 of those things, they're probably not out looking for a job, because they're probably making really good money. Years ago, we had, before we hired Doug Tabbitt, one of the people who interviewed for Doug's position, the guy was not going to get hired 30 seconds into the interview, because he was coming from business, and our vice president of learning at the time, she went and asked him, she said, well, why are you looking to make a career change? And he goes, 3 reasons: June, July, and August. I'm not going to do a friggin' thing all summer. And you could just see from her face, he wasn't going to, he wasn't going to get the job. All right. But the point is, they had written, they wanted a person who knew security, who knew programming, who knew web, who knew databases, who knew networking, all the hardware, all the software. And the one thing he said that I thought was a really great comment was, at the end, they always, at the end of the interview, they always say, now, do you have any questions? And he said, well, you've done a really good job. I had a bunch written down here, but you've answered them, but I have a comment. And he said, this was a really well-written job description. And again, remember, this was about, good 15 years ago or something like that. And I think the salary at the time was like in the mid-upper 40s, something like that. But he said, if you think for what you're paying, you're going to get somebody who's got all these qualifications, you're nuts. And he's right. So, when you go in for a job interview, don't try to impress the people that you're interviewing with that you know everything there is about whatever it is you're interviewing for, because you don't. No one does. They don't even know it if that's all they do for a living. All right? So as it says, it's impossible in modern web development or anything else. So what a lot of people do is what he says here. They go for depth in the areas they love. So the things they have the most interest in, those are the things they spend the most time in. But you should at least, if anything at all is mentioned in a job ad, all right, you should at least, if nothing else, Google it, Wikipedia it, or whatever. You don't want to go in there, and going along with that, maybe you've heard this kind of thing before. Don't ever put anything on your resume that you're not willing and welcome and able to talk about. Years ago, I interviewed for a job, and for some reason, I had some obscure class that I took. All right. And it just so happened that the person interviewing me was not from that school, but from another school who had the same class. He goes, wow. And he starts talking about it. I couldn't remember anything about it. Finally, he goes, you don't remember anything about this class, do you? And I said, no. He said, you really shouldn't put it on your resume then. And he's right. All right. All right. Stick to things you understand. I watch some of you. I applaud you for your effort. But with some of the people in here, and you know who you are, it's get the basics working in your program first, then worry about the bells and whistles. For instance, on this next program, you're going to put it in image view. I wouldn't be concerned with the image view. Do that last. Get the working logic of your program up. In fact, what I did was I actually went out there and did this. And I said, well, if I was going to write this in a thing like C#, because it's real easy to go in there and build a form. Literally, that took me about a minute to do. All right. Well, it doesn't look nearly as nice, to be honest with you, because once I went and put it into Android, I've got another one up, but I'll show it to you later. It doesn't look nearly as nice. All right. All right. This is a big thing. Do exploratory toy projects. Once you start to learn a new technology, write a small program. You can ask the people, the first year people, and Luke is in one of those classes, so you can, how many times have I said that? Write a little code and test it. Write a little more code and test it. Don't write hundreds of lines and then start testing. Start with something small that you understand. All right? Diversity in life, as it says, specializing is good, but it's good to have regular activities not related. So don't make this your whole life. And many of you I know have got a lot of interest and stuff outside of here. That's a good thing. All right. So when in doubt, always go back to the fundamentals. So again, if you're going in for a job, for a web job, no HTML5, no CSS3, no JavaScript, no jQuery. Again, you might be asked some pointed questions. We've got a person who works here, and it's not me, because people, you might say, was it? But there's a person who works here in another division who is actively interviewing. And I asked the person, I said, have you had interviews yet? And they said it was interesting because they had a couple online where they asked them to do different things. All right. And he said what was interesting about that, he said the stuff was pretty fundamental, but they let the person take an online test. There is no norm today. Everybody does things in their own way. And, make sure if you possess any of these, and hopefully you all do, non-technological skills, bring those out. If you've had jobs that you've worked on, where you've been a team player, because they're looking for stuff like that. I get asked that when I will tell you, typical reference check for somebody. Okay, how do you know him? How long did you know him or her? What was your relationship? How did they work with others? How did they work by themselves? Did they get their work done on time? How was their attendance? Would you hire them if there was a job open at Blackhawk? All right. And there actually have been a few people, I no way in hell would I hire them, but I'm not going to say that to the person. So, I said, yeah, sure, I would definitely encourage them to apply. All right. So just kind of keep that stuff in mind. All right. Now, I want to just quickly run through something that's in here. In the in-class folder. You don't have to go to it right now. I'd rather have you listen to me. And if you think this stuff is important enough, then take a look at it later. All right. But in the in-class folder, there's a folder in there for today. And you'll notice that among other things, as far as what's in there, I threw a bunch of different stuff into Word. Now, this is not the one you're creating, but this is an example of a temperature conversion program. So you can take a look at it. You could use that one. It's using a linear layout rather than a grid layout, but if you needed something for inspiration. I don't care how you do this. All right, I really don't, as far as how you set it up. You can do it basically any way you want to do it. All right, this article I'm going to go through in just a couple minutes. It's called GridLayout, so I'm going to hold back on that one. That's for next class. I don't know when. Here's another one on grid layouts. All right. There's a site out there that you may or may not have heard of. It's called developer.xamarin. I don't know if that's Amarin or what, but they've got a lot of good stuff out there. A lot of times when I go and Google something, it won't even make the first page, but I'll look at if they have something in there. Because typically, whatever they put out there, they give you the chance to download all of it as a PDF, and they give you all the code that they used. So they built a thing in here throughout this, and it's not anything big or anything, but they talk about stuff, and they throw code in there. There's that JavaScript fatigue article I already showed you. Here's another one from Tutorials Point that's on using the Android grid view. And again, they talk in depth about, some depth, about the major attributes that are in here, and they show you an example. They have you build an example from scratch. And again, sometimes that's the best way to learn this stuff, is to just sit there and well, I'm just copying. No, you're not. And not only that, so first of all, so what's wrong with that? It's not that you're using that one for your homework, but you're getting acclimated or used to doing something. And chances are, since we're all human, that you're going to make one or more mistakes as you're keying it in anyway. This particular one that they show in here, you can see what's in here. They've got, 18 or whatever it is, 21 pictures of dogs. And then when you click on any of the thumbnails, it brings it up. I believe that's what it does. I didn't even look at the program, but you see the code. So you click on one of the thumbnails, and it brings it up in a regular size. But it's a way to learn, and it shows you how they've set this thing up. Again, it's not the greatest of examples. Neither the handout that I just gave you was from right here, this grid layout. What they build in here is this. Again, it doesn't look like much, but the XML file that I just gave you, I copied in their XML file. Did it work? No. Well, I shouldn't say that. It had warnings up the wazoo because they hard-coded in string values for everything. So I changed them on mine, and I put some hint text in there. Now, there's a few things I changed on mine, just so you know that's not exactly the same. For instance, see how long that is? That actually is longer than the amount that you have on the screen here. So that was 200 pixels, and I made it 170 or something like that, just so it would look a little nicer. But one of the things hopefully you see looking at this, in many ways, a grid layout or a grid view, whatever you want to call it, it's like using a table. Because if you look at this, where does that button for add product, where does that end? It ends at the same place this ends, etc. So you can see where stuff starts and ends. It might be hard if you're planning on putting in a cool graphic, and I went out and found one yesterday. Maybe you don't think it's cool, but I thought it was kind of, for a temperature conversion program. It's this one, and I just went out to Google Images. I liked it. I thought it was pretty reminiscent of what it is you're trying to do. All right. But there's at least a chance if you're going to do this temperature app or temperature conversion app, you might want to make it landscape only, depending on how you set it up. All right. Because again, the more columns you have, when you're looking at something this way on this kind of a device, you don't have much room for many columns. You got a lot more this way. All right. Gain the height, lose the columns. Lose the height, gain the columns. All right. So you got to figure out how it is you want to set this thing up. And again, that's the one in there. That particular example is the one that I took and literally just threw in there and just scaled the graphic. All right. All right. But if we quickly, and I mean fairly quickly at least, go over this example, there's just a few things I want to say about it. I literally Googled grid layout and started taking a look at the stuff that was in there. This is from a book, okay? So if I go out here, in fact, I think I've got it up already. This is from this book, Android Programming Unleashed, all right? And you'd say, well, gee, why didn't we use that book? Yeah, we could have. They don't have a lot of complete programs in it, and they have a lot of code snippets in it, and it's just, they introduce a topic for a few pages, boom. Introduce a topic for a few pages, boom. Kind of like our book is, all right? But if we look at the article that's here, the author talks about a few things. First, they talk about fill parent versus match parent versus wrap content. And I want to make sure people understand this. I said it the other day. I'm going to say it again. All right? If you have something on a screen set up to wrap content. All right, if it's set up to wrap content, what that means is it should only take as much area as it needs. So for instance, if you looked at that button, those buttons that were on here, where is it? Oh, this isn't that article, this one. If you look at those buttons, this one takes up more than this one because add product has more letters in it than cancel does. But these are both set up to wrap content. All right, so if you ever start working on this stuff and you create something and it looks humongous, then chances are it's set to match parent. All right, and when you look at it, the actual code for this, the stuff that this is the stuff that you have, everything that's in here is inside of the grid layout. So everything that's there is a child of the grid layout. All right, and what I did was I started copying it in, and I didn't like doing that. So I started literally typing it in myself. So some of it's typed, some of it's copied. But the point is, this is the first time ever I did the entire app and didn't use this, and I didn't use the palette at all. I just used XML, just to see how it would work with that. And again, there's some cool things about it, some not cool things about it. And I think I told you this the other day, but I can come in here and I can type in Android and hit the colon, and you'll notice that when I do that, it shows me everything that's available to me. Many people like that as they're going in there keying their stuff in. It's easier for them to do that than it is to go through a properties window. But it's a matter of taste. I could never tell which way you did it, and even if I could tell, I wouldn't care. You should do it the way that's the easiest for you, all right? The thing that makes the most sense for you. So they talk about a few things in here. They talk about how you can specify, and again, this is zero-based. So for instance, this title that they put in that says new product form, that's set up to Android layout row 0. It's not set up to column 0, but it's set up to row 0. So that's what you start with, all right? And in the example, when you look at it, so there's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's more than that because there's a blank area in here, and I think it's down here too, but one of these, I think they made 7 total rows in here, and I think it's just 2 columns, all right, as far as I remember. But they show you a few other things in here also. That look kind of familiar to you? It's not exactly the same as, it doesn't look exactly the same as what you see like in CSS when you work with tables and stuff, or HTML when you work with tables, but there's a row span and there's a col span. So if I say row span here again, have it be double the width, right? All right. If I say, I should say double the length. If I say column span equal 3, it's triple the width. So there's a lot of ways that you can set this up. The other thing that you can do too, and this is kind of neat, these are just placeholders that we put spaces in. I don't know, again, I'm not sure who all of you had in here for your 152, 157 class. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was me, Jim Schmidt, or somebody else. But the point is, it used to be when you created tables in HTML, you would have a problem. So if I was doing this, and I'm not going to write the whole thing, but if I just put a table row in here, and then underneath that I put in a table data, some junk, it doesn't matter what. And then for some reason, let's say I decided to put another one in here, and I didn't want to put anything in it at all. You're not encouraged to ever do that. Because sometimes by putting absolutely nothing in there, the table can get off scale. All right, so bless you. So what's recommended is that you do this. Remember what that stands for? Non-breaking space. So you're putting just a blank space in there. And the reason I'm telling you that is that's what they're doing here. They're just using the word space as a placeholder to set up the things so it lines up the way they want it to be set up. All right. And notice if you want, here's an example as it says. Here's a space holder, but it actually spans 3 different columns. All right. column 0, but column span. So how many columns wide do you want it to be? All right. And then they go through and they explain everything that's in here. So it says the application is set up the same way as they did the table layout in figure 314. All right, so they use this, again, to create that. And as mentioned, I did the same thing. Now, I'm not going to sit and read this to you. You can take a look at it on your own as you have an interest. All right? But again, it just, the last thing here that I'll leave you with, because I know this morning, I know that I think Luke had asked me this, on that BMI thing that I gave you the copy of. Did the program actually work? I don't know, because I rekeyed it in and I probably changed it around from what they had in the book or in that paper that I gave you. If it didn't work, you should have been able to figure out why, all right? And, you know, so let's just say you don't do what I said before, and you type the whole thing in, and the darn thing doesn't work. So you go run it, and it comes up, and you've all probably seen that. What is it? I'm sorry, unfortunately, your Android application has stopped. All right. Wow, that really lets me know exactly what was wrong. No, not really. So what you should start doing then is you go through all the code that you added in, every line of code you added, and start to remove it. Sometimes I'll do that. I'll remove everything, every single line of code I put in. And when I say remove it, comment it out. Don't physically get rid of it. So comment it out. Then run it again, and you probably won't have, if you click buttons and whatever, nothing will happen, but the program should work. Then start to uncomment the stuff. That's probably the best way to figure it out. All right? So like I said, they explain that. If you want to use that as a template or something for your program, for your the one that you're doing for the monetary thing, I don't care. All right? And as I told you, here's another one. This is done with a linear layout. Okay? I would hope if you're going to do this, at a minimum, you would make that look a little nicer, and you wouldn't have it to that many decimal places. All right? So here's the thing. If you didn't get that before, here they show match parent. So if you notice, the parent is the kind of the white thing around there, and then the cream thing is there because it's match parent. Take up everything. All right? And then they show you, and they say that match parent used to be called fill parent, but fill parent was deprecated back in API level 8. And then wrap content, maybe you've noticed that before. You go and you add a control, a label, or whatever, or a text view, and there's no code in it, and it's really, really small. And it's really, really small because it's set to wrap content. It's set to only hold whatever it needs to hold, and there's nothing in there. Like I said, hopefully that makes sense taking a look at it. They give you some code examples in there also. All right? So the only other thing I wanted to show you is I do want you to see this. So this is the one that I'd given you, so I'm going to close this. And then open up the other one. So this is the one that I created, and I wish I'd spent more time on it because it looks pretty bad. All right. But I tried to do this. And again, I didn't even get to this part right here. All right. So here's all the strings that I put in. Again, I didn't need that hello world, but I put in the word temperature converter, enter a temperature, Fahrenheit to Celsius, Celsius to Fahrenheit, F to C, C to F, and clear. All right. And where is that? I always forget where this is. Not there. Not the manifest. I don't know why that's. Main activity, which I don't want. Strings, which I don't want. Brother. Activity main. Res layout. That's where it is. All right, so what I ended up creating looks like this. Is it good? No, but it's functional. And again, I didn't worry about the image view, but I want to play around with this. This lined up real nice. It's very hard to see, but these are all text views. If there's an edit text here, an edit text here, and an edit text here. Again, they don't show very well on here, but if you saw it on screen, it looks much better. Well, then notice I actually have it set up now for 4 columns. I've got nothing in column 4 on purpose, but notice number 1 is tethered, so it starts basically at the same place where the other first column. This is all a space. I've literally got it set up as a space all the way through. So that's where that one lines up. And this one is lining up with all the different edit texts. So right now, and I started thinking about it, well, let's see. How would I want to fix this? Well, one way to fix it, probably the easiest or maybe the best way to fix it, is this stuff I wanted to line up, and it lines up just fine, all right? And that's inside of a grid layout. Maybe in here, I didn't want this to be in a grid layout. I'd want to lay it out my own way, in a linear way or whatever. So again, remember, it's totally legit. I can come down to here, and where I have this stuff right here, the buttons, I can change that, and I can add in here a brand new layout. So I can have a layout within a layout. All right, and if I do that, it probably would be much easier to do. The other thing, as I mentioned, is I want to change this around so that it is just totally centered. I'm sorry, so it's totally landscape, because I think it's going to give me more room to work with, and it'll end up looking nicer. All right. So not exactly what I'd hoped to show you, but it's what I got done. All right. And for the other class this afternoon, I'm going to show you. It's not a hack, but it sort of is. We're gonna all build an interface, a real simple interface for the temperature program. And I'm gonna show you how you can do auto layout, and you'll have it done literally in about 1 minute. Okay? Just so you get that done. All right? Questions on this? All right, so the rest of the period's lab then.